This Super Flexi-disc is a gift to you from Horse and Pony magazine. It was specially recorded at the busy stables of show jumping star Caroline Bradley in the heart of Warwickshire. Caroline tells how you could pick a promising show jumper. She passes on helpful hints on training and management. There's also some useful advice to youngsters who would love a career in show jumping. So sit back and listen as Caroline explains to Bridget LeGood what she looks for in a young show jumping horse.
Well, when I'm looking for a horse for jumping, I want a nice horse, full stop, because show jumpers are so few and far between. Okay, I look for one that I think might be a jumper, but the chances of it actually making one are very slim. So I want a horse that is capable of doing another job apart from jumping. In other words, it can go eventing, hunting. But so it's got to be, first of all, it's got to be just a nice type of horse, big enough, enough breeding about it for it to be capable of doing any of those jobs. And it's got to be sound and good feet, obviously, you know.
Are there any particular faults in conformation or problems that a horse would have that you'd say, no, that one's not for me, it'll never make it?
I steer clear of any problem that is going to be a weakness. You know, if you've got a conformation fault such as upright pastons, it's going to be a weakness and you don't want an unsound horse.
And how important is the horse's temperament for the job?
Oh, I mean, that is the deciding factor almost. You can have two horses with equal amount of ability, but one might try for you for 15 years and break its heart to do the job, and the other just couldn't care less, you know, and you know which one you want.
And how much time do you actually spend yourself on the preparation of your jumpers, the novice classes, fox hunter classes, that sort of thing?
The time is very difficult to weigh up because some horses come quickly and others don't. But all that work I either do myself or supervise it. If that is done correctly, you'll have a good jumper and a level-headed horse for the whole of its life. If that is done badly, you're always going to have a problem.
So how do you start them off then? Say you've got a 5-year-old that's done a little bit, perhaps 1 or 2 newcomer classes. What's his training schedule?
Well, I would look at it a different way, you see, because once they've done 1 or 2 newcomers classes, they're really ready just to go out and do plenty of shows, a lot more classes. The work is before that time. It's months and months and months of work, and when they've got to that point where they're ready for a show, I find they probably need 7, 8, 9 shows before they're really winning. I seem to be very slow at that point. A lot of people have their horses out and winning the first few times, but it does ours seem to go out and, okay, they might get place because they're jumping slow clears, but we don't seem to be very high up to start with. Because I don't like going fast against the clock early on. I like to get the horses in a rhythm and a nice way of going, but as far as going against time, that doesn't enter into it.
Let's talk a little bit about the pressures which the horses are subjected to. I mean, obviously they can't tell us how they feel, although one can get a general idea of whether ears are back, whether coat is dull and all that sort of thing. But what are the sort of pressures that they're subjected to?
I always think a show jumper is a freak. I mean, to have to want to keep going out and clearing fences, there's got to be something either a bit odd or a bit special about them. I think that the pressures are really that when they get to big classes that you feel they're ready to win, you are asking them to jump, well, to put a lot of physical effort into it because you're asking them to jump big fences. You're asking them to be mentally very sober because, you know, you're pushing them against the clock for one class, and then the next class you're slowing down again. And really, the physical effort is obvious. The mental one, you've got to weigh up, and you don't know how much a horse can take, whether they can take 6 days jumping on the trot at Wembley, whether you can only jump the horse 2 days running, whether the horse is better with a run up to a big show with sort of a carefully planned sort of schedule with 3-4 shows beforehand, or whether the horse is better with a break beforehand. You have to feel your way with that, and when you find a pattern, then the pressures on the horse aren't too much at all. But if you don't, well, before you find the pattern, it can be quite hard work for them. And you know, there's so many different things too. Some horses are better on heavy poles and some on light poles, and you need to know the shows and who is course building, and you get there and they've changed the course build and you've got the wrong horses.
So what do you do to keep the horses happy then when they're at home? What's their routine then?
Well, once they get to this more advanced stage, I think they have really quite a nice time, because if they have a hard session at a show, we bring them back home, we try and freshen them up or we'll give them the opportunity to freshen up if they need it by popping them in the field here. That's what we keep that little old pony for. He nursemaids them. Then they might have a couple of days hacking, and then before they go to the next show, then we'll just go back to the basic work and just check out that the horse hasn't got any problems. Normal basic work. I probably would never even jump them higher than about 3'6" at home, these older horses, but just checking up on gymnastic work, that they are supple and they aren't frightened by things, and they are shortening for their fences and they're not cramping.
Does it mean you have to have a full range of show jumps at home, or can people get away with slightly less than that?
Well, if you looked around here, you'd see I haven't got a full range of jumps at all. I mean, we make a lot of use of barrels and any old boards that we can find and sort of paint very brightly. I think anybody can use just a little bit of common sense and a bit of imagination and make themselves sufficient fences from very little material.
So what would your advice be then to a young rider who has a comparatively novice horse and would like to take show jumping seriously? What should he or she do?
I think one of the main things is not to rush, just to take time. One thing that always annoys me a little bit, you hear people say, oh, he jumps the bigger fences better than the smaller fences. And that always rings a warning bell in my head, that the horse hasn't done sufficient work, and they're putting them over bigger fences purely and simply to get the horse to back off the fences. If you're working on your own without anybody helping you, never be frightened to watch as many people with perhaps more experience and ask. I know when I started I had so much help from people, and to start with very few sort of official lessons, but just advice given freely and willingly.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Caroline as much as I did. She really did give us some super tips. And the fun continued for all of us here at Horse and Pony as we put together a great competition all about Caroline and her horses. You'll find all the details inside the magazine. We've also planned some fabulous features and lots of surprises for you, so why not join us every fortnight? See you then.